She sleeps in the walls. Part 1. The smell beneath the floorboards. I never wanted to come back to Alder Creek. Not after what happened in that house. Not after the night the attic door opened on its own and something started whispering my name through the vents. Not after I started seeing her reflection in places where mirrors didn't exist. But now I'm here alone. 17 years later. And the house is still waiting. It smells like damp rot and old teeth. The kind of smell that seeps into your tongue and makes water taste wrong. I stood in the doorway for almost an hour before stepping inside, listening to the walls creak, not from the cold, but like they were stretching after a long sleep. The will was specific. My mother left me the house under one condition. Stay 7 nights. Listen. And don't open the door in the hallway. No matter what it says. She was buried in December. Her body found in the upstairs hallway. Not her bedroom. Not the kitchen. Just sprawled on the floor outside the locked door with her hands over her ears and her mouth torn open like she died screaming at something no one else could see. The coroner called it a stroke. But I saw the inside of her mouth. I saw the teeth marks on her tongue. And they weren't hers. The first night, I slept in my childhood room. Or tried to. The walls kept breathing. I'm not being poetic. They breathed. There was a rhythmic rise and fall behind the plaster. And a wet, sucking sound. Like something large, slick and boneless, shifting slowly between the support beams. At 3:12 a.m. I heard it again. The voice. Not whispered. Not human. Not even language. Just sound, low, vibrating. Like a throat filled with water trying to mimic a word. And then, Myri, I froze. My breath caught in my throat. My nails dug into my own palms. The voice was underneath the bed, but the floorboards were solid. No crawl space. No vents. No gaps. Just wood. And something alive beneath it. When I woke the next morning, there was dirt in my mouth. Fresh. Cold. Like grave soil. And someone had placed a lock of long black hair on the nightstand. It was still warm. Part 2. The hiss in the wallpaper. I tried to leave the next morning. Keys in hand, bag by the door. But the front door, which had no lock the night before, now had 3 rusted bolts sealing it shut from the inside. Thick iron. Ancient looking. I didn't install them. No one could have come in. And the windows? Nailed. From the outside. Fresh nails. Shiny heads. Still bleeding sap from the wood. I stood in the living room, breathing shallowly, phone in hand. No service. No signal. Just a single bar that flickered when I held it near the fireplace, a place I hadn't looked in years. And there, deep in the ash, was a burnt doll's head. It was mine. I don't remember what made me look behind the wallpaper. Maybe it was the way the light hit it, slanted, unnatural, as if something was moving just behind the floral patterns. The wallpaper in the upstairs hall was bubbling outwards, pulsing gently like the skin of a breathing animal. I peeled it slowly, 1 inch at a time. Underneath was blackened plaster. Charred, cracked, and something else. Scratches. Dozens. Hundreds. All going the same direction. And then I saw it, a word, dug into the wall with such force that it split the lath behind the plaster. Let me out. The letters were uneven. Childlike. Some of them smudged with something darker than soot. Something rust-colored, flaking like dried blood. I stepped back, bell rising in my throat. Behind me, down the hallway, the locked door groaned. Just once, as if it was listening. That night, I dreamed of her again. The girl. She stood in the attic corner, barefoot, with hair like a wet veil covering her face. Her nightgown was soaked down the front, clinging to her chest like she had just stepped out of a pond. She didn't move, didn't blink, just whispered, "You forgot me." When I woke, my bedroom door was wide open, and the walls were bleeding. No metaphor. Thick trails of black-red ooze dripped from the corners, staining the floorboards, reeking of iron and decay. I tried to scream, but all I could taste was dirt again, and something gritty like ground teeth. Part 3. The thing with her voice. I stopped sleeping after the 3rd night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. Not standing. Not whispering. Just there, folded into corners of the house where shadows had no right to exist. Her body was wrong. Joints where there shouldn't be joints. Head tilted too far to one side, like a broken doll still trying to smile. But the worst part was her voice. It wasn't a voice at all. It was a copy, like a field recording warped by rain and dirt. She'd mimic my mother's tone at first, then mine, then voices I didn't recognize. Men and children and something insectal, high-pitched and sticky like legs scraping against glass. And always the same phrase. You know what you left here. On the fourth night, I broke into the attic. The trapdoor was nailed shut with rusted spikes. It took me 40 minutes to pry it open. The air that spilled out was hot, stale, rank like something had died up there and no one had cleaned it up for decades. Inside, there was nothing. No furniture. No dust. No cobwebs. Just one item, a child's music box, sitting in the center of the floor open. It played on its own. Not a song I recognized, just a few broken notes over and over, like a lullaby played by something that had never heard a lullaby before. As I stepped forward, I felt it, softness beneath my shoe. I looked down. Fingernails. Hundreds of them. Tiny. Cracked. Curved. Piled in a perfect ring around the box. I turned and ran. I didn't notice the photographs until the next day. They were in the basement, behind a stack of rotting books. Old Polaroids, dozens of them. Each one badly faded, like they'd been soaked in water. Faces were blurred, figures half erased. But one thing remained consistent in every frame. The girl. She was always in the background. Behind trees. Through glass. Reflected in TV screens. Never centered. Never looking directly at the lens. Except the last photo. That one was taken from inside my childhood bedroom. She's standing right beside the bed, facing the camera, and her mouth is wide open like she's screaming, but the picture's silent. Except, when I held it up to the light, the room around me went quiet. No birds. No creaking. No wind. Just one sound, click, click, click. Like a camera shutter. Right behind my head. Part 4, The Hollow Girl. By the 5th night, I stopped pretending I was alone. There was something in the house with me. Something that didn't breathe unless I slept. That dragged its feet when I blinked. That watched from inside mirrors only after I looked away. I kept catching glimpses of her, the girl, not with my eyes, but with the parts of my mind I didn't control. Peripheral flashes. Ceiling corners that twitched. Shadows that arrived seconds after the light changed. I started talking to myself. Not to comfort, just to fill the space. But sometimes there was a delay in my own voice. Like someone repeating me a second too late. I'd say, I'm fine, and I'd hear it again softer, cracked. I'm Fionn. And it wasn't me anymore. That night, I opened the door. The one at the end of the hallway. The one my mother died beside. It shouldn't have opened. I didn't have the key, but I turned the handle, and it clicked like it had just been unlocked from the other side. Inside, no room. No furniture. Just a stairwell descending into black. Stone walls. Old. Wet. Breathing like lungs around me. I counted 40 steps before the air changed. Not colder, wetter. Thicker. Like I was walking into a throat. The walls pulsed slightly with my footsteps. Then I heard it. A heartbeat. Not mine. Slower. Louder. Like it came from beneath the stone. And layered under it, faint, like wind through teeth, was her voice again. You let them bury me. The bottom of the stairwell opened into a room I didn't know existed. It was round. Silent. The air was wrong, thick and sour like decayed milk. The walls were lined with drawings, children's drawings, but not made with crayon. They were scratched into the rock with something sharp. Every drawing showed the same girl. Long black hair. Hollow eyes. Sometimes she had a mouth. Sometimes just teeth. In one, she was hanging upside down from the ceiling by her ankles, smiling. In another, she was curled inside a fireplace. But the last one, larger than the rest, was different. It showed me, older, standing right where I was now, looking at this very wall. And behind me, drawn faintly in the background, was her hand reaching out of my own back. I turned. No one was there, but I felt the fingers under my skin, just for a moment. Like something was knocking from inside my spine. She sleeps in the walls. Part 5, Mother's Secret. When I came back upstairs, everything had changed. The house was breathing. Not metaphorically. Walls expanded and contracted, wood creaked in slow rhythm like a sleeping animal. The wallpaper rippled when I walked past it. Paint peeled in strips without wind. And in the mirror by the stairs, my reflection had started to lag. Sometimes it blinked when I didn't. Sometimes it smiled. And once, it stepped back, just an inch, just far enough to not be me anymore. I tore through the attic looking for answers. Behind a false wall panel I'd never noticed, inside a rusted trunk filled with moldy clothes and wet books, I found something that wasn't mine. A journal, wrapped in a child's nightgown, faded blue with white lace trim. The same gown the girl wore in my dreams. The journal belonged to my mother. The entries started in 1989. She came from the water. I should have never followed that sound. I didn't mean to bring her home. I thought she was a girl. I thought she was hurt. She knows I know. She watches through the wallpaper, through mirrors, through cracks in glass. The child isn't a child. She's a space where something else wears skin. She says I made her. I didn't. And finally, one entry dated the week before Mom's death. I tried to burn the body again. She won't stay dead. I hear her laughing under the floorboards. If you're reading this, run. Do not look for the room beneath the house. But I already had. And I wasn't alone anymore. That night, I heard footsteps outside my bedroom door. Not one pair. Two. One slow and dragging. Wet footfalls leaving smears across the floor. The other lighter. Childlike. But the steps didn't match. They didn't follow the floorboards. They walked on the walls. And then came the whisper. You're hollow too now. I tried to gouge her out of the walls. Hammered through the plaster. Tore apart entire panels. But every time I struck through, all I found were more drawings. More nails. And once, behind the old linen closet, I found a small child-sized skeleton, curled into itself. The bones were wrong. Fused. Bent backward. No skull. Just a mask placed over where the face should have been. The mask was made of mirror. It showed my face when I held it. But I wasn't blinking anymore. The house wouldn't let me leave. I tried. I broke a window, there was no outside. Just more hallway. I opened the front door, another version of the living room. I ran up the stairs and ended up in the basement. Reality was folding in. And she was growing stronger. Part 6, the hollow voice. The mirrors were gone by morning. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. The bedroom mirror, the hallway mirror, the ones in the bathrooms, they had all disappeared. No cracks, no shattering. Just empty spaces where reflective glass should have been. And then I heard it. A scream. Not mine. Not from the house. It was her. From below. The walls shuddered with it. I couldn't move. I stood frozen in the living room as the sound reverberated through every creaking floorboard, every stifled breath of the house. She was calling me. Not with words. Not with sound. But with something worse. The air tasted wrong, thick with the weight of it. The temperature dropped, but it wasn't cold. It was something worse, something that gripped your lungs like dry ice, numbing your chest as if the very act of breathing could tear you apart. The attic door was open again. I didn't want to go up. I knew what would happen. I knew what would be waiting. But I had no choice. There was no more running. The house had already swallowed me whole. I climbed the stairs, each step feeling like I was dragging my own skin behind me. The trapdoor was ajar, but I didn't have the strength to push it open. It slid on its own. A soft sound like bones scraping against bone. Inside, the air was suffocating. Thick. Rotten. And the smell, it was unbearable. The same sickening odor from the attic that had been there all along. But now it was worse. More pungent. More decayed. The walls were covered in scratches, not just from the girl this time. There were names carved in the plaster. My mother's name, my own, and others. Some I didn't recognize. Some I couldn't hear. In the center of the room, there was the music box again. The same one. The one that had started this whole nightmare. But now the melody was different. Warped. Slower. Drowned in something otherworldly. And then, in the corner, just beyond the dim glow of the flickering light, there was something I hadn't seen before. A figure. At first, I thought it was a trick of my mind. But the longer I stared, the more it solidified. She was standing there, pressed against the wall, not looking at me. Her face still hidden beneath the wet curtain of hair, but I could feel her eyes. And the moment I realized she wasn't alone, that the walls were breathing in time with her, that they were moving, shifting like something inside them was alive, that's when the realization hit. She wasn't trapped here. She was feeding on the house, feeding on me. I tried to run, but the stairs were gone. The hallways were gone. The rooms no longer existed. I was trapped in nothing. And then I heard it. A whisper. Soft. Guttural. Like fingernails on glass. It crawled into my mind and twisted. You are me now. The walls screamed. The floor split open. And I fell. The next morning, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I had been swallowed whole, devoured by the very space I once lived in. The house was no longer just a house. It was alive. It was hunting. But I was still there. I still am. When you come looking for me, when you hear the whispers behind the walls, when you feel that cold chill creeping down your neck, you'll know. You'll know that I'm still here. And you'll wish you hadn't looked. The end?